So there's no denying that streaming has taken over the film industry in the past decade or so, with Netflix launching its online streaming service in around 2007. But that was not the start of the company. At first they were a DVD rental service by mail, so you'd rent a DVD like Blockbuster, but instead of going to a store, it would arrive in the mail and you'd send it back by mail. But then they had the genius idea to have a platform where all of these movies could be rented at once on a monthly basis without any physical media, which birthed the streaming service model we know today, which has been copy and pasted by Amazon Prime, Disney+, HBO Max, Shudder, Apple TV+, Hulu, Peacock, Now TV and a slew of others. But is this good for the film industry? Well, let's look into that. Well, let's get to why streaming is great or even beneficial first. For one, the accessibility is unreal. For however much a month, as it varies from service to service and from time to time, you get access to a library of movies that feel near infinite at times. People get exposed to movies they have never seen and have easier access to movies they want to see. Everybody with a bank account, internet and an email address can be applied to this, and I think that's pretty special. Not only is it widely accessible, but people get to experience these films in the comfort of their own homes, which reduces the cost of seeing a movie significantly. Rather than spending a ton of money on extortionate cinema prices or paying 15 to 20 pounds or whatever dollars, whatever currency on a new DVD release, you can spend that a month and get access to a whole lot more. Plus, adding to the accessibility is 24/7. You don't have to wait for a showing, you don't have to wait in line, you can have it there and then, whenever and wherever that may be. Another point to consider is that it brings light to movies that may not have got that shine upon initial release. Even more than that, they're helping create movies that may not exist otherwise. Think The Irishman, Marriage Story, Mitchells vs. the Machines, Wendell and Wild, Do Revenge, Private Life, To All the Boys I Loved Before, Tick Tick Boom and others. Great filmmakers given a chance on making something they really want to make, and from my research, people like Netflix are very fair on creative control and allow their creatives to push their films in whatever direction they please. But this doesn't only affect movies. The introduction of streaming services has made TV shows bigger than they perhaps have ever been. Shows like Stranger Things, The Mandalorian, The Boys, Rings of Power, You, Sex Education, Umbrella Academy, and even shows like Breaking Bad got a saving grace from Netflix. Now, of course, everything is not a hit, but the sheer amount of great originals that have been released at high quality in almost all genres is outstanding. Disney Plus may be the kings of pushing out product on their streaming service, but I have more to say about that later. Also, in most cases, the creatives, crew and cast are paid before release, since streaming services don't make profit from individual releases, so it guarantees that people will get paid for their work and don't have to wait and bet on box office returns. And with the amount of streaming services, there is bound to be one that matches your needs. If you're into horror, Netflix have a great catalogue of pre-existing and original content, and Shudder is perfect for new, original and indie horror content. If you're looking for something child-friendly or something with a heavy emphasis on family-friendly content, Disney Plus sounds like you. If you're into the classics or important movies to cinema, Mubi and Criterion have you covered. If you're looking for just a vast spread of every kind of content and the best streaming library by far, but in the most inefficient interface, Prime is what you want. So by all accounts, streaming seems like a net positive, right? Well, no. So let's talk about the negatives and even the negative parts of some of those positives. Okay, so firstly I spoke about the accessibility, which is truly a great thing. However, in that point I mentioned that people now primarily experience movies in this format, which is essentially killing physical media and even cinemas. The death of physical media is honestly a pandemic across mediums like music, movies and TV, but specifically for movies and TV, owning and holding something tangible is an underrated experience. Going out and picking a DVD or finding something you like strictly from the cover and purchasing it and having such a fun experience is a little thing in life that rarely exists now. The inlays, the extras, behind the scenes, director commentaries, deleted scenes, concept art, and lest we forget, they require no internet. Plus, we forget all too much how valid the want for human connection is, the social aspect of purchasing and collecting physical media. Also, the social aspect of going to a cinema and watching a movie with a bunch of people all experiencing it at the same time. Now, of course you can have shitty experiences, but I've definitely had more good than bad. Going to see Endgame opening night with 4 friends is an experience I can never forget. This shift from cinemas happened slowly over the years but was massively accelerated during COVID, which made a lot of production companies realize they don't even need to release in theaters at all when they're streaming. The cinema used to feel like an event, but now it feels like an inconvenience, and I think that's wrong. Something else to consider is that the over-availability of movies and TV shows can be argued to be bad, since it's cheapening their value, especially with TV shows in the case of binging. Having an entire season drop at once is in one sense amazing, since people can sit and go through every episode at once, but it's taking out a lot of the hype build-up and the conversation, since people are always at a different point. Whereas if they were released episodically, weekly, people have time to catch up and talk about the show at every stage, give every episode value, and as well as extending the life of said TV show. Plus, it almost entirely destroys the concept of spoilers for the last episode, since people don't know the end immediately. Think about season 5 of Stranger Things possibly being episodic, since the ending of season 4 was rumored so exhaustingly across the internet. Or think about WandaVision, a show I give an average score 5 out of 10. But it was released weekly, and because of that, the hype around the show made it so much fun to be around. All the dumb theories and all the conversations being had was infectious. Another way to think about this is how awful the algorithms are. Now think, a personalized front page seems all too perfect, right? Well no, because the problem is, just because you watched a few things in this genre, the service tends to think that's all you watch, which then becomes extremely difficult to discover new things outside that zone in the future. Also, the personalization only goes so far because, especially in the case of Netflix, they will shove their newest originals in your face regardless of what you typically watch. You love stand-up comedy? Here's Stranger Things. Ooh, you're a big animation fan, I see. You would love Stranger Things. Oh, romantic comedies are your vibes. Have you considered Stranger Things? This goes towards a point I was nudging towards earlier with Disney+, but the oversaturation of content has become too much. The availability is great, but there is also simply too much of it. The amount of Star Wars and Marvel content alone dropping on Disney Plus is enough to entertain a family of 10 for a decade. This means not everyone can see everything, and somebody is always way behind on something and missing something. Speaking of missing something, lastly, the over gatekeeping of media. Now, the initial idea of Netflix was to have basically everything localized in one place, but now that's very far from where we are. Now every production company has their own streaming service with their own back catalogs and exclusives, and they're all getting very pricey, and at this point, to watch everything legally, you would need like 6 streaming services totaling to like 100 a month, and then even then you don't have access to everything. It just seems like the original idea has been lost, and that's why I truly believe there is only one superior form of streaming a movie at home. So, with all that said, I think that's everything I wanted to say. So let me know what you think of the topic, what you think of this video, and no matter how you do it, as always, keep watching movies.